I have here uh, Johan. Johan Stein from South Africa. So, quick overview about him. It's very less. It's a lot to talk about him. Johan is an artificial intelligence enthusiast and speaks globally at conferences on fourth industrial revolution and emerging technologies. Johan is a 2019 award winner for Best AI and Robotics Management Consultant by Wealth and Finance magazine. He has published author who regularly contributes articles on thought leadership to well-known publications such as Business Day, The Sunday Times, FinWeek, News 24, IT Web, Brainstorm Magazine, etc., etc. He is the chair of the Special Interest Group on Artificial Intelligence and Robotics with the IIT PSA, which is Institute of Information Technology Professionals of South Africa. He works for PwC South Africa as a lead architect and automation. So, Johan, over to you. Please go ahead.
Rakesh, thank you so much. It's a great honor to be here with everyone. I love that video of Andrew NG. Couldn't hear all that much, but I think I got the basics, especially what he said toward the end: form or become part of a community, learn together. And that's why I think I learn more at attending these kind of events than what I teach other people, because listening to the questions, listening to the various speakers, made me realize that we all look at this smart technology era through different lenses. Some people are extremely technical, we need them. Like me, I look more at it from a societal impact point of view, especially job displacements. What will automation do for the future of our children? Healthcare, the weaponization of this technology. I met Rakesh, by the way. We were about 5 or 6 years ago. We were both working for Accenture, and we went on a trip to Israel to I think it was in Tel Aviv, the largest software R&D center in the world, Rakesh. And we lost contact, and then luckily you made touch contact again. So thank you for that, and great to still be in contact after all these years. As you can see on the screen there, I'm going to just very briefly, in about 20 or 25 minutes, talk about these deployment challenges. I'm going to bring this lens of more a business lens than a technical lens. I'll tell you a bit more about my experience in dealing with customers and seeing what works and what doesn't work. Rakesh has already touched on this, but just there is my website, aiforbusiness.net. If you'd like to connect with me, my Twitter, LinkedIn, email, everything is there. And then also the articles. In the last 6 months, I think I've published about 55 articles in these publications that you see. So would love for you to connect, and also let me know what you think about some of the things that I'm writing. First slide before I get to the agenda is common sense, because I think the one thing I'd like to think that you get out of my talk today is that a lot of these aspects around technological innovation, application in our businesses, the future, and so forth, look, a lot of it is complex and difficult, but for me, it comes down to a lot of common sense. The advantage I have is that I'm not a very technical person. So I work with some very smart people who can implement the machine learning models and the robotic process automation bots and so forth. But when I see a customer, I have to have a conversation with them on a business level. I'm sometimes a bit wary, and I make this joke tongue in cheek that I bring the very smart technical people only into the third or fourth meeting, because a lot of them tend to just jump into the solution, jump into what platform are we going to use? Is it Azure? Is it AWS? Where we haven't really even completely understood the client's problem. So that's what I often say when I'm in customer meetings. So just take a breath, step back a little bit. And then there's two questions I ask customers. The first thing is, what is your understanding? Very high level, and not even technical, but what is your understanding about AI or robotics process automation or IoT or whatever the meeting is about, to make sure we are talking about the same thing. Because more often than not, I realize that a lot of people throw these terms around that we don't even know what we're talking about. I still have clients who think that robotic process automation and machine learning or AI is exactly the same thing. So it feels to me that about 80% of what I do is re-educating clients about what these things really are from a business perspective. So that's the first thing I always do, is just to make sure we're talking about the same thing. The second thing is, because I work in this field of AI and RPA, that because it's a kind of a sexy topic, that I get client meetings quite easily. And once they see my profile on LinkedIn and read some of the stuff I've written, they want to see me. But then where that first meeting becomes awkward is they would, for instance, say, we want to use AI in our human resources department. And then my first question is, to do what? And that's when the meeting becomes weird, because people say, because AI will solve everything. It's a silver bullet. It's smart, and so forth. And then I again step back a bit and say, what's your problems? I've even had meetings where I said to clients, let's agree that for the next 30 minutes, no one is allowed to use words like machine learning, AI, robotics, IoT, cloud, but we only talk about the business problem. And I've had many clients where the actual answer to what they wanted to do was ways of working better together, people not understanding the flow of the processes, the different tasks that people had to do, where the gaps were, the handoffs, the delays, what they really tried to achieve, and so forth. So it's more often a process problem or the way we work together than, and no technology will be able to fix it. So only once we mature those processes and the understanding of how we work together, then we can start looking at all these smart technology things. So I wanted to start with this slide. A lot of these things that I'm going to share with you today is common sense, but I think people often miss it. Briefly, what I'm going to talk about in the next 20 minutes. I want to start with just asking and challenging you on what is your view on AI. Oh, and by the way, any questions, please drop it in the chat. We're going to try and get to it in the last few minutes. But we can start with that. What is your view on AI? And I'm going to tell you why I think that's an important question. Then I want to talk about maybe the biggest reason in my experience why these new technology initiatives either completely fail or does not deliver the value that it was promised, and that is leadership understanding. You can have the smartest machine learning engineers in your business. Smart, your CIO could be like a rock star. But if your chief financial officer, your chief executive officer, your chief operation officer, all these C-suite, but not just them, but also the layer under them, the senior manager layer, they don't have to become technical experts, but they have to understand what this technology is going to do. So I'll talk about that. Another big thing that causes these implementations to fail: business case is not understood. We don't know what we are trying to achieve. Change management, taking people on the journey with us, making sure we don't get resistance, starting small and getting cadence. And then I'll end off before we just recap and then go to some questions is a very important topic to these days in this field is how do we use this technology responsibly and ethically. So I want to ask you, if you look at these two pictures, is if you think about artificial intelligence, what comes up? Because for some people, the one extreme is this Terminator evil robot. It's going to kill us. It's going to take our jobs. On the other extreme is it is such a cute, nice technology. All these little chatbots are helping me. I like using Siri on my phone. I've got my Google Home advice device that's will play any song I ask it to. So I often start with this slide because we also have to get onto the same page. None of these two extremes are accurate because it is not entirely evil, bad technology. It's also not entirely cute, great technology that we don't have to fear. Somewhere in the middle is the correct view. The point I'm trying to make is if you fear this technology, then your ability to learn about it, to embrace it, to maybe pivot your career will be limited. The same is true when you take people on your journey, which is one of my following slides. If people in the organization fear that automation will take their jobs, that AI will spy on them, and so forth. There's so many different fears. People will resist. And no matter how it's mandated from the top, you will not get it right because people will just take almost their pitchforks and storm the office. So think about this a bit. What is your view? It cannot be one of these two. It must be in the middle. We have to think about where our future is going. As I said, it's already weaponized. If we think of biases in facial recognition and other technologies, wrongful policing arrests, privacy issues, if we think of Elon Musk and Neuralink and others already working on brain implants, if we think of the future of democracy, there's a lot, and that's a lot of my articles go about these things. But then there's also the aspect of it can really help us. It can help our children, educate them. It can help us in healthcare and so forth. So I'm going to leave it there, but just think about where on this spectrum you fall currently when you think about this kind of technology. I've already alluded to this. The leadership in any organization, in any business, needs to understand this technology. And as I said, they don't have to become experts. They don't have to be able to do talks at a conference like this. They don't have to be able to read every book there is. But they, like everyone in the organization, will resist and fear it if they don't understand what it is. Not only that, they will try and mandate that this technology is used for something that it's not good at. So let me give you an example. Months ago, one of the big banks here in South Africa contacted me and said, will you help us or come and consult because we want to build a chatbot? And I said, okay, well, that's a good thing to do. Conversational AI, great way to improve your customer experience and so forth. But then I also had that question. I said, but to do what? Okay. So the business case or the problem was the following. About 30%, 30, of the clients who start interacting with the bank on their mobile device, so through a digital channel, 30% of them end up going to the bank branch in any case. The reason is they're not either understanding the application, or the application is too slow, or it's not giving them the information. Even before COVID, but especially now, I'd rather not go to the bank. I'd rather just let them answer my questions quickly, solve my problems. Things like my credit card's not working, I need a replacement card. It should be such a quick and seamless process. So what they wanted to do is they wanted to try and put a chatbot in this mobile app, surprising that there wasn't one already, in order to get people not to go to the branch. And again, I said, let's take a breath and step back. So then we spoke about the fact that the customer journey is not properly understood. The conversational design or the flow of the interaction, the business architecture, the back end automation processes that need to kick off, those things were all broken to some extent. So a chatbot will not fix this problem. But this leadership said, a chatbot is our answer. And again, that's why we might either totally misunderstand this technology, resist it, or we might try and use it to do things that it's either not good at, or it's very good at, but it's not the answer to our problems. Okay. So I often start there. It's about the business case. It's about what do you understand this technology will do? And also, if leaders don't understand this technology, they will not be able to take their people on the journey with them, which is an important aspect, which I'll get to a bit later. So, how do we get leaders? And a lot of us on this webinar are leaders or will become more and more senior leaders as we grow in our careers. We have to do some effort, some self education. And again, I don't want to read a book on machine learning algorithms. It'll bore me. Some people find it exciting, and we need those people. I like reading books, as I said, about so Yuval Noah Harari, for instance, Sapiens, 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. That's exciting for me. If you're in finance, there are some great books, free videos about how the finance function can benefit from this technology. But the point is, or whether it's executive education, we get a university to spend 4 days with our leaders in order to teach them. But it's both in the hands of the leaders and of the organization and also of their vendors to provide them the necessary information so that they understand what this technology is. Next, and I've touched on this, and guys, again, that's why I started with common sense. This is such common sense, but people miss it. They start with machine learning models. Okay, but what do we want to do with it? Okay. Another example I want to give you, again, a bank here in South Africa. What they've got about, I reckon, about 40 to 50,000 people who work for them. And every morning, every staff member had to fill in a little spreadsheet. It was like a COVID health check. We do this often, do you have a temperature? Do you have a sore throat? Have you been in contact with all those kind of things? Fill it in, and then email it to your line manager. Okay, so now 50,000 people every day are emailing this little questionnaire to their managers. I can bet you most managers don't have the time or inclination to go through all these little spreadsheets. And this is laughable because, this is a bank that's spending millions of dollars on their AWS and Azure platforms. They're doing, in certain aspects, some amazing work in the banking space. Now I'm thinking, of course, there's no way they can actually collate all this data, make sense of the data, because how do you see patterns? Because that's one of the things that AI and machine learning should do. So the suggestion then was, let's create a very simple little website, little mobile app, and that the staff would, and again, guys, this is so stupid, people should be slapped around. It's so easy. It's common sense. Little mobile app where every morning I can add my health questionnaire, all the data comes together and we can start seeing patterns. So for instance, if a branch here in Johannesburg somewhere, if more than 20% of the branch staff are saying they're starting to feel sick, they have headaches, their throats are sore, then the model will pick up. There's most likely a problem. We have to shut that branch down, or we have to send people home to self-isolate. Now, even that can be automated. So once there's a certain, based on the business perimeters, a certain percentage of people feeling a certain way, they can get an automated message saying, for the next 2 weeks, stay at home. So the question is, what are you trying to achieve? The best place, because clients ask me this as well, well, where should we start with this technology? There are so many places, but the best place is your customers, the way you interact with your customers. So it's not just customer experience, customer delight, but the kind of data that you can responsibly and ethically and legally get from your customers as they interact with you. You know, a mobile phone provider that I've been working with here, they obviously, your mobile phone firstly has a lot more information on you or your mobile phone provider. So Verizon, Orange, Vodafone, whoever, they have a lot more information on you than your bank or any other organization. They know more about you than you know about yourself. Because think of this, your mobile phone provider knows exactly where you are geographically, as long as your phone is switched on, but they know where you are. They know what applications you're using. They know what kind of information and what website you're surfing. So they can, from a behavioral analysis point of view, build a quite an interesting picture around you. So think of this as one example. And again, this is not 100% set in stone, always accurate, but if a female in your typical childbearing age, and again, as a guy, what do I know? But I assume it's, say, 16 to 35 or whatever. But if a female client in that age group suddenly starts using her phone a lot more during the night, much later at night, much earlier in the morning, there's a good chance that there could be a new baby in the house, because why is she awake so often? Also, maybe her husband is just a horrible snorer, who knows, or a partner. But also, if she starts surfing now websites around where to buy nappies, where to get the right kind of food for the child, so you can automatically start building this image. And this is just one little example, but I'm talking about the behavioral analysis around how our customers are interacting with us. And then out of that, we can already take the business cases that we know about, but we can also discover that there are needs our clients have that we don't have products or services for, but now we have the data to make the business case. So there's a certain kind of product that we haven't invested in creating yet, but 50% of our customers are trying to find something like that when they interact with us. And then you can start putting a dollar amount to it and say, maybe we should invest $2 million to develop this because look at the ability. But again, common sense. What are you trying to achieve? And if you don't know where to start with what will make life better for your customers. I've already alluded to this again, important. Take people on the journey. Remember what I said on the leadership understanding? If we as leaders, or if the leaders of your customer or of your business don't understand this technology, there's no way they could take people on the journey with them. Because people fear, it's just human nature. We fear things we don't understand. Remember, because most people think AI is that evil robot we saw on the third or fourth slide. We, of course, think about our future careers. We think about, will this stuff take my job? That's maybe the most common fear that I think people have. A lot of it is because it's reality, and a lot of it is because of the hype in the media. Now, an example I often use with clients. So here's a principle I work by, and because I work in the automation space. If a client says, I want to automate through RPA or intelligent automation or whatever they want to call it, hyper automation, but I want to do it primarily to get rid of people, so the so-called FTE reduction, then as a principle, I will not work with that customer because it's not a good enough reason to automate. Yes, part of the business case could be that you don't need all the people that you have at the moment. Okay. But I often say to a client, but what about future growth? So the example I use is if you currently have 100 people working for you, and we realize that through better automation, better data, and so forth, you can actually cut that 100 people down to 80. So the business case is the salary of the 20 people you're going to fire. But then I say to the clients, but are you not anticipating growth into the future? So let's turn this whole thing around. So you're 100 people now, but maybe in a few months you will need 120 people to accommodate all the growth. So the business case is rather we keep them to the 100, but through better empowering them through insights, data, and automation, the business case is you don't have to employ 20 more people. So that's one example. But yeah, things like change management, organizational design thinking, a lot of these things come in the non-technical aspect of this technology. Also, for me, one of the best ways to affect change, in positive change, is you start small. So part of the whole AI strategy, implementation strategy for me is what makes the most sense from a business case point of view, from a data readiness point of view, and so forth. But where can we also get cadence or momentum quite quickly? Because if a small department starts seeing the benefit, so if people, because one of the targets of robotic process automation is your repetitive tasks, your back office people, your administrative people. They're the first people who could lose their jobs. But if they start seeing that their lives are actually becoming better, for instance, I don't have to do long report on a Sunday night for the 8 o'clock Monday meeting. Most of the reporting is automated. I might just spend 10 minutes to quickly verify everything is okay. And we can use many examples, but once people start actually realizing I'm enjoying my job more, I don't have to spend time on all this nonsense. I can actually start thinking, solving problems. I might be somebody who loves working with people, so I've got more time to encourage people. And then lastly, before I wrap up, is just to talk about this responsible AI, ethical AI. It is not just because it's important to do it. I mean, there's a lot of legal and matters, legislation, and so forth. There's a lot of trouble you can go into as an organization if you use your customer data without permission. We all know those things. We know GDPR and all those things. But then there's also a further thing that, the amount of change we can bring into society through this technology gives us incredible power. And how are we going to use this responsibly? Now, recently we've seen a lot more in the EU happen, for instance, around governing and legislating around this. There are still so many loopholes. We've seen what happens at Facebook and at other places around biases and data and so forth. But one of the key things that I just want to end off with is we have to have a responsible or ethical AI plan as part of our rollout plan. Where do we get the data? What do we use the data for? Is it anonymized, the personal data? And also, the idea of bias is maybe the most important thing to say here. As a bank, we might give somebody a loan and somebody else not a loan just because the other person lives on the wrong side of town. But there's nothing that differentiates them otherwise in their credit worthiness. I've spoken about policing and all those kind of things. So quickly to wrap up, remember what I said in the beginning. What is your view on AI when you're leading a team? Get them to also have the right view, not the extreme on the evil side or on the good side. The way that you as a leader and your greater leadership understand this technology, the fact that you should focus on the right business case, which is often the way you interact with your customers, change and taking people on this journey with you, and then ending off with responsible and ethical AI. And that is it. Let's see if there are any questions, sir.
So far, I think thanks, Hon, for that intro. I think we wanted to start with how things are shaping up before we deep dive into more technical deployment challenges that we are going to talk about. Right. I think the next few sessions will be all about technically the issues that one face when they want to deploy AI. Right. So I think you set a good platform to talk about and the way you explained. So yeah, I think one question I have though is how often you have to convince customers this project doesn't need AI at all. That is something we want to understand as well.
It's such a good question. And you know where the problem comes in? People are often, their KPI, their target set by their bosses is you have to use AI this year in your area. So for them to try and get their promotion or their bonus, they're going to have to obviously meet all their KPIs. I mean, we all know about that every year. So now you're going to, and I always forget how this English saying goes, but it's what I've got a nail and or I've got a hammer and I'm looking for a nail to hit into the wall. So you've got AI and now you're looking for a problem to fix with AI. Okay. So, and again, that comes back to the business understanding. People are often set on this silver bullet thing, that this will solve my problems. Or my boss says I have to do it or I'll be in trouble. And that's where, it's a much greater conversation often than with that initial person, that head of business in that area, to get them to understand that the investment they're going to make in this technology will really work against them. Or to, rather than just go wall to wall AI, is let's start very small and let's see if it works. Let's see if your people can use it. Let's see if your customers are more delighted. But you also could get to clients that just say, whether you want to help me or not, I'm going to use AI. And then as a vendor, I would say, we are going to fail together. I'd rather you use one of my competitors. So, but it is sometimes a difficult conversation. I just see there's a question from Laxmi, but otherwise I can take your next one,
Yeah,
Rakesh.
please go ahead. The next question is, what is the South African bank looking out for when it comes to automation or usage of AI?
I think, look, there's a lot of things around fraud detection, which is an important topic in banks, for instance. But because there's all these negative things you can fix with this technology, I'd like to focus more on the positive things, which is understanding our customers better, making sure they enjoy their experience with us better, giving us insights through the data to sell on more services to them. So remember, I used the example of your mobile phone provider will know if you're a young lady and you might have a new baby in the house. But what if your bank knows that? Now, what about selling insurance and education policy for the new child and so forth? So again, that behavioral analysis based on the data. So yeah, but I think all the banks, and then competing quicker, because we've got a lot of fintechs here, like we have all over the world, that's providing much cheaper and better banking services to customers than your big old massive banks. So yeah, I hope that answers the question, but we need to automate in order to do things quicker and to help our customers better. That's the bottom line answer for me.
Sure. Thanks, Rohan. It was very nice, very interesting views and insights. Certainly helps in viewing how we can think of AI before even talking about AI to any customers.